The 9th of July, 2024. This is one of that, it's time skidmarks of mine. And this one is aimed specifically at the black militant keyboard warriors on social media. And obviously, I don't have a big black following. So each one of you need to share this thing as wide as possible. I'm going to touch a few points that I covered in the Afrikaans Briekmerke a few days back about what South Africa was. And it is important that these facts are spread wide so that they can think. Now, the problem that I have with these black militants, first of all, the bulk of them don't know who their own father is. That is a big problem, because that is the reason why most of these young blacks are so undisciplined. And the next thing is they don't understand the basic concept of respect. They don't have respect. They rape their own grannies. What the fuck is that? What behavior is that? And whatever I'm saying on the topic, I'll be called a racist, and I don't give a flying fuck for that. Call me a racist. There's a big difference between being perceived as a racist and acting like a fucking barbarian. That you have to understand. Now, many of the things that I'm going to mention to you is open information. You can go and Google it, search for it. The problem is, it is a reality that a large portion of these blacks cannot read with meaning. So for them to Google an article and read it, it's a exercise in futility, because it is just words. It means fuck all to them. And that is the big problem. They've got this big story that they're driving about, we want the land, we want the land, we want the land. Now, if they had a proper education, and if they were able to read with comprehension, they would understand that in history, all lands in the world has been conquered by somebody. Some of the conquests were because of wars, some were because of trades. Here in South Africa, we had a situation that it was the voortrekkers that moved out of the Cape and moved into the interior. And these voortrekkers were involved in many battles with locals. They lost battles, they won battles. In the end, the voortrekker leaders as well as the black leaders sat down around a fire and they discussed the damn problem and they resolved the conflict by talking to one another, and they came to an agreement, and land was traded for cattle or traded for goods, or land was gifted as a token of appreciation, things like that. Nothing of stealing fucking land, man. Your ancestors and my ancestors sorted the case of land out between them. And in the end, they realized that conflict is not good for any one of them. So they came to these agreements and they lived together in peace and harmony. Both communities benefiting from the peace. But you little keyboard fucking warrior sitting there in your stolen phone and tweet cut, you've got no grasp of the situation. So you must stop that land shit. Your ancestors and my ancestors sorted the land out between them. And as I have said, with trades, with wars, with conquest, with gifts, whatever. But they resolved the land issues between them. For you to come in 2024 and scream, you stole the land, you stole the land. Fuck you. I was not involved in that. My ancestors was involved. Your ancestors were involved. The problem is, most of you don't even fucking know who your ancestors are. You don't know who your own father is. But you try whap, whap, yap, yap, yap. Now, you talk about slavery and all that shit. The problem is, most of you, all of you, have not been born at the height of apartheid. You were not born. Now, let's look at the realities. In 1988, a German book published How Benevolent the White Giant of Africa Actually Was. Here are some facts referencing 1988. In 1972, South African blacks owned 360,000 vehicles, more than all the black African states together. The monthly income of blacks per capita in 1988 was 352 rand per month in South Africa. In Malawi and Mozambique it was less than 20 rand per month. Now let that sink in. I know it's difficult for you to grasp facts. Try your best. In 1988, the income per capita of blacks was 352 rand per month. And today, all of you are highly impressed with the 350 grand that this dilapidated, fucked up government is granting you. The difference is in 1988, that 352 rand was worth a lot. People bought groceries with that money. People educated their children with that money. People bought cars with that money. People bought houses with that money. The 352 rand that you get today, the 350 rand that you get today, 2 bottles of 2-liter cooking oil and 1 bag of sugar, and that 352 rand is fucking gone. Let that sink in. But you scream, we want the land. What you should actually be screaming for is, we want jobs. We want economic growth. That is what you should be screaming for. But you cannot, because you don't understand that the lack of opportunities is fucking your life. Moses 6 verse 6. Stupid people must suffer. In 1988, black people could undergo a complicated heart valve surgery for just more than $1, while black Americans had to pay $15,000. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. And compare it to today, where if you have to go for a complicated heart surgery, where the fuck will you go? The state hospitals are totally dysfunctional. You will be placed on a waiting list and maybe they can help you in 7 years. But yet, you want the land. Fuck. That is what you had. Your ancestors had that. Top quality medical care for $1. That's 2 rand, roughly. Think about that. In a Pretoria hospital, between 2,000 and 3,000 of these surgeries were done per year. And I know, I lived through this. Friends of mine were doctors participating in these operations. Friends of mine were nurses caring for these people. But yet you want the fucking land. You don't have a life, but you want land. In 1970, black workers earned 1,751 million rand, or 25% of the total wage fees in South Africa, and increased to 17,238 million rand in 1984. That is 1,000% growth, and it represented 32.3% of total wages in South Africa. But they earned those wages because they had jobs. Not your fucking mental disturbed idea of slavery. Fuck that, man. But those thoughts are the results of a shit education. In the 1986-87 financial year, whites paid $9 million rand and blacks paid, it was 9,000 million. 9,000 million. And blacks, 171 million. That's a small portion. Indians paid 257 million and coloreds paid 315 million in tax. Now just understand, they paid those taxes because they were earning wages. And you? Living on a fucking grant. You've got a low level with which you are measuring success. Between 1962 and 1972, the UN, the United Nations, paid $298 million to underdeveloped countries, compared to South Africa that spent $558 million on the development of its black areas. That is double, that's basically double for South Africa to spend compared to the UN. But again, you won't be able to grasp the reality of that situation because you're uneducated. You think a 37% pass is a marvelous thing. It's not so good. Now here comes a kicker. The budget amount for black education increases every year from 1970 to almost 30% more than any other government department. From 1955 to 1984, the number of black scholars increased from 35,000 to 1.096 million. Let that sink in. In 1988, 71% of the adult black population could read and write, versus 47% in Kenya, 38% in Egypt, and 34% in Nigeria. And here we sit today, 80% of grade 4s cannot read with comprehension. A hell of a big percentage of grade 12s cannot read with comprehension. But yet you can scream, "We want the land, we want the land," instead of screaming, "We want education, we want education." No, fuck education. Decolonize education, burn the fucking schools down, fire all the teachers, and let the union run this thing. You are so fucking stupid. There's no other word for it. You are so stupid that you don't understand what has been done to you. And it was been done with a plan. Let the 30% pass be the thing that you think about. No other developing country in the world has a 30% pass. Now, on average, during the year, 15 new classrooms were built per working day for black scholars. Yet you are screaming, "We want the land." Your fucking government, your leaders, destroyed your education facilities by not funding it, by not building schools, and you helped them by burning down whatever was left. And you gave the controls to the unions. So today you're sitting in a situation, the bulk of your black teachers are Zimbabweans. They have no fucking responsibility towards the population. It's just a job, and that's what it is. And you help them by burning and destroying your schools. Go and look at your existing schools where you are supposed to get educated. You've broken all the fucking windows, you destroyed the furniture, you destroy the blackboards, you destroy everything. And you want to know why the fuck you are suffering. You are the engineers of your own suffering. But yet again, that is too complicated for you to understand. In 1985, there were 42,000 black students enrolled at South African universities. There were 5 black universities and 28 higher education institutions funded by the government. Let that sink in. But you've got a lot of shit to talk about. Apartheid. Where the hell do you think that Nelson Mandela get his degree? And it was a proper degree. Not a fucking tree climbing degree. Today, universities is the hiding place for unemployed youth. That's what they've become. People don't learn at universities anymore. A small percentage of the students are actually studying. Soweto, with its population of 1.2 million, had 5 modern stadiums, versus Pretoria, with its 600,000 whites, who had 3. So, Pretoria, half of the population of Soweto, half of the stadiums. But you can scream about apartheid. You've got no fucking clue what you're talking about. Your problem is you were born in a shithole and you grew up in a shithole. You grew up in an environment where education was fucked, health services were fucked, infrastructure was fucked, electricity is fucked, everything is fucked around you. And to you, that is the normal and your frame of reference. But you don't understand there was a time when blacks, yes, blacks, had their own townships, and their townships were safe, and they had their own houses, and it was proper houses, not the shit that was being flung together today. You can go to Soweto and go and see the houses that was built in the fucking 50s. They're still standing, still functioning. Just look at all the dilapidated railway stations along the railway lines in the platteland areas in South Africa. Look at the quality of those buildings. Look at the quality of those houses. That is something that you don't know. But yet you scream, we want the land, we want the land. You don't have a fucking clue what you actually want. What you need is opportunity to build your own life, like I had to do. My dad was a miner, and when I finished at university, I got a job, and from that job and salary that I earned, I started building a life. I wanted a house and I bought a house. I wanted a car and I bought a car with my money that I earned from my work. You don't have a fucking clue of how that works. You don't understand the joy of starting your own little business out of your garage or under an umbrella on a sidewalk and grow that business into becoming a business that employs a lot of people and are actually making money so that you can better your life. That is what entrepreneurs do. But you don't have that in you. And if there's a black person in your community that actually grasps the meaning of opportunity and he starts a small business from a wheelbarrow or a cart and it grows into something and eventually he's got a little building and he's beginning to do better and better and better, and then he manages to improve his and his family's lives. The next, you blacks destroy his business, burn it down, burn his car, kill his people. That's what you do. What is that? Call me a fucking racist, but that is barbarian conduct. That is what the ancient civilizations, when they started getting more civilized, their biggest fight was against barbarians, because the barbarians were always destroying and destructing. And what have you done to South Africa? You burn schools, you burn libraries, you burn city halls, you burn clinics, you burn hospitals, you destroy railway lines, you destroy roads. What is that? Forget any racial connotations. Look at the acts. Those are the actions of barbarians. But your problem is you are so fucking uneducated that you don't even understand the difference between a barbarian and a civilized person. You don't. To you, it's the same thing. To you, it is natural to just want and take whatever you can. Whether you've earned it or not, that's not important. As long as you can take it, you'll take it. You blacks, young black activists, militants, you've got a more of a problem. You don't have a future because you don't have a proper education, number one. Number two, you don't have opportunity because what have you allowed? Yes, you allowed it because you are the majority and your Malema leader is your hero. What have you guys allowed? You allowed immigrants, illegal immigrants, to stream into the country. They consume all the public services that is available without ever contributing to anything of that, which denies you access to it. They have taken your township economy into their position. So they have the spazas, they have all the shebeens, they have everything. They run the economy in your lives. You scream about apartheid, but you gave your fucking life to illegal immigrants. You did it. My ancestors, when the British wanted to steal our land, we fought them and we fucking won them. But what did they do? They physically killed our women and children in the concentration camps. Thousands of them. And the history is there. You can Google it. Go and see what was done to the Boer in the Anglo-Boer War. And then, once you've seen the true facts, think about your fucking claims that my ancestors raped and killed your ancestors. Fuck you. I'm a Boer, like my ancestors. I have absolutely no fucking drive in me to rape any of your women. Are you fucking crazy? But that's what you do. You rape our women. And once again, that is barbarian conduct. So, you have to sit down in a corner. I have said it in previous Skidmarks. What you need to do is find your tribe. Then get into a taxi or your car or a bus and go to where you think your ancestors come from. And in those villages, find old men, 60 years plus, and sit down with them and talk to them about apartheid. And then just keep your fucking mouth shut and listen to what he will tell you. And he will tell you that he could go in those days to a clinic and actually get medicine and actually get medical treatment. They could go to schools and were actually taught mathematics, taught languages, taught history, taught science. That is what they had. You don't have that. My ancestors, the Boer, up to about 1990, almost every farm had a little school for the black children of the community. And most of the times, the farmers built those schools and they employed the teachers. They did get support from the government in some of these schools for the teacher salaries. But after 94, all of that was stopped. Ask yourself why does your government, your black majority government, why did it destroy the farm schools? I'm going to tell you now. Because they want you dumb and stupid and uneducated. Because if you're educated and clever, you see how they're fucking up. And they couldn't afford that. That is why they destroyed the education system. But that is most probably above your level of ability to comprehend. And I'm going to leave you with one more fact. The white government built a huge hospital, Barbados, 3,000 beds in Soweto. One of the largest and most modern hospitals in the world. Its 23 operating theatres were equipped with the best equipment money can buy. Here, blacks were treated at a nominal cost of R2 for an unlimited period. In 1982, no fewer than 898 surgeries were done here. Next to Barbados Hospital is the St. John Eye Clinic, famous for the treatment of glaucoma, previous fixed retinas, traumatic eye injuries, and rare tropical diseases. Let that sink in and compare it to your situation today, where you will most probably die if you pick up a serious infection from an injury. Because these things do not operate and function anymore. But yet you can scream, we want the land. And you can sing, kill the boer, kill the farmer. This is what Boere did for you. What did you give in return? Hatred and threats of genocide. But you must understand, intelligent people, educated people, look at your conduct and they shake their heads because you have a major issue. Just as XXX has concocted this focus on hating whites, your ANC black government is also focused on what is popularly called clever blacks, and they subject them to the same treatment that we as whites receive. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? The simple answer is because this cabal in charge cannot afford black people to tell other blacks of how the black government is fucking up. Because then they cannot use the race card. They have to face the facts. There's a lot more that I can share with you on this, but I'm going to stop because this video is getting too long. And unfortunately, many of you have got the attention span of about 60 to 90 seconds TikTok movies. That is why you are screaming, we want the land, but it is based on some fucking fallacy and figmentation of your mind. I'm going to repeat it. The land issue was resolved by our ancestors. Your ancestors and my ancestors resolved the land issue. And you have to take into consideration another very uncomfortable fact. Just as my ancestors arrived in the Cape from Europe, your ancestors arrived in South Africa from Central, Western, and Eastern Africa. So, you want to call me a settler, you are a settler as well. But those are historical facts. The problem is, you are, point number one, not aware of the real history. And point number two, you do not have the mental capacity to evaluate and come to logical conclusions. You cannot, because you are uneducated. And that's not my mistake and my fault. It's not my ancestors' fault that you are uneducated. It is your own fault. Your own people are doing it to you. But this world is in the hands of God, the creator of the universe. And nothing is allowed to stay out of balance for too long. You have got a problem in your society of population growth that is unsustainable, but yet you think it's an achievement for a 12-year-old girl to have a baby. The problem is not one of you ever sit and look at that baby and wonder how the fuck is that baby going to reach the age of 70. He's not going to be educated. He's not going to have proper health care. He's not going to have proper food. He's not going to have proper hygiene around him, he will not be educated properly, he will never develop a skill, and he will never be employed. So what fucking future does he have? No, but let's breed, we got to get 350 rand for the baby. And that is what you blacks have done. You've turned your black children into a commodity. And then you scream when those commodities disappear. What you don't understand is that you have become the manufacturing plant for the pedophiles, the organ donators, and the human traffickers. You are providing them with stock, but you're too fucking stupid to realize that. So, back to Moses 6 verse 6, stupid people must suffer, but here comes the shocker. Moses 6 verse 13, fuck around and find out. And unfortunately, you are now there. You've been fucking around, and now you're finding out. And if you think what you are experiencing in your personal environment is bad, I've got news for you. It's going to get far worse, because you have allowed politicians to pump your head full of shit, and now you're getting shit ideas, and you see shit results from your shit actions, and you don't know how to cope with it. That is your problem, and you need to pay attention to it, because the facts are you do not have a future. Not because a white guy stole your future, because you allowed your black leadership, politicians, to throw your future down the fucking toilet. And you actually were so happy with that, you helped them pull the chain. Moses 6 verse 6. Don't forget that. Please give me a like and a subscribe and share this thing. Thank you for your support.